It's time for another good idea, bad idea. Good idea.
Alrighty, welcome back to Orly Radio 129. This is the Good Idea segment recorded Friday, October 14th, 2016. And let's see, we've got Tesla has released a new video. I don't think I'm going to be able to play it properly, but it is it's claiming that all of the Tesla cars that they're manufacturing, all of them, are going to be self-driving, or that they are self-driving right now. I say that this is a good idea because I drive for a living. I'm on the road probably 6 hours a day. I really want everybody to be driving self-driving cars. I really want that.
It would probably make things safer.
Your audio is breaking up again.
There we go. Then it would probably make things safer given how much people drive like maniacs on the road.
I think that's been looked into actually. Is the safety of self-driving vehicles versus manually driven vehicles, and I believe things came out in favor of the self-driven vehicles. Immensely,
if I recall as well. That's been out there pretty regularly. This comes up. It takes away your freedom, but in an environment where everything is coldly calculated by the computer, it can figure things out, and it does everything in a fail-safe method instead of a I'm just going to run that light and see what happens kind of way, which is kind of what road rage and just impatient humans will do. This was released on October 20th, so it's fresh. This is fresh data that they put out for full self-driving hardware on all Teslas, and it's out on their website.
It's the computers, as we know, can react faster than humans.
Yeah.
And can probably calculate things to be more efficient than humans. Again, setting up whole caravans of cars and doing, close-in drafting where you might have only 4 inches clearance. But they
could
can handle that.
They could, but I think that they're going to stay with the 2-second follow distance model.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying it's the idea of you could have these huge caravans of just very efficiently driving.
Now that's probably something that they're going to do with the big rigs, because Tesla is also they're designing trucks. Peterbilt, Mercedes, Freightliner, they've all been designing and building self-driving trucks, because for them, just like with the airlines, how once you're off the ground and before you come down to land for airliners, at that point you're in autopilot. You need to be in autopilot, by their own admission, because it saves so much fuel. It's much more efficient. Everything is done properly. There's no muss, no fuss. The pilot is there to make sure that things stay running the way they're supposed to run. And they still want them to do it for landing and taking off. Even though it has also been tested where the planes can take off and they can land. I mean, I'm talking like big Airbus planes, huge suckers. They can take off and they can land on autopilot. Some planes have an uplink to the tower where the tower could take control remotely and land the plane in a disaster. If I'm wrong, please go ahead and email the show at orlyradiopodcast@gmail.com or send us a text or a voicemail at 470-222-6759. So, hey, come on, correct us if we're wrong. We want to be as right as possible in all the factual things in life. The video is about 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 45 seconds. So go follow that link and watch this guy just not drive his own Tesla. It's really kind of interesting. The funny thing that they've done, though, because of regulations, you still have to have somebody behind the wheel. I think they've made the wheel itself slightly conductive so that it knows when it's being held, because you have to actually be touching the steering wheel in some fashion unless the vehicle is like in parking mode, which is interesting. Of course, the real idea here is they get so efficient that the Teslas will be able to go, park, and then get summoned and come back and get you, or go on to the next person that's supposed to get the car.
It drops you off in the front of the building, then goes find a parking spot for it.
Yeah, in a ride-sharing kind of way, too, where, maybe it's not your car. Maybe it's, I don't know, could it be Uber? Because I know that they're investing heavily in auto-driving technology as well. And they're already testing it in foreign markets where the regulation is less stringent than here in the United States. But again, they've got people, behind the wheel, basically, that they're there, again, just for safety in the event of a horrible emergency. And, of course, to deal with customers in the back, because that's a thing. But yeah, it'd be a... What do you think of self-driving cars, Amber?
I have mixed feelings, and I will go ahead and say that the mixed part of those feelings aren't really based in anything logical. I like to drive. That's just me. I mean, that's just something I enjoy. I like the experience of driving. I like having control over the vehicle. And I would even go as far to say as it's completely irrational of me to feel that way, because I have a phobia of planes. And one of the reasons that I am afraid of flying is because I don't like the fact that I don't have control of the plane.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like the idea that, and obviously you're in the air. There's not a whole lot you can do anyway, but no. I don't like the idea that I couldn't turn the wheel, like if something were going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's why they call them phobias, is because they're irrational fears. But,
yeah,
I think it's amazing, some of this automation that we're getting into, on the other hand. And it also makes me think a lot about how much of our lives are going to be automated soon and how many jobs we're going to lose because of it.
Yeah, we've spoken at length about what will happen when there is more automation. Frankly, I don't think that it'll be a problem because let's see, the job that I have now did not exist 15 years ago. Like, the entire field didn't really exist 15 years ago. So what will it be as we automate things? New job openings will emerge that we can't tell. It's fear of the unknown, really. We don't know what's going to happen in 15 or 20 years. But it's just going to be amazing for our kids, because they're going to be in jobs that, or at least they're going to have potential jobs that we got no clue were going to possibly exist. And that's an amazing thing. And a lot of that's going to be because they don't need to dig ditches. They don't need to drive a cab. They don't need to drive a delivery van. Those things are already taken care of, so they can seek other options.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But it does bring up, the problem of not everybody can perform quote unquote skilled labor.
Right. Yeah.
Not that digging ditches and driving taxis doesn't take a certain kind of skill. Where does it leave people like that?
I think there's always going to be room for it. And also there's, let's see, way back in the Wayback Machine, back in the dawn of time. Now, in my youth, my mother worked for an adult retarded citizen community, because that was the proper terminology at that point. Mm-hmm. Basically, adult basic education. So you've got Down syndrome, severely autistic, the people that are of lower functioning than stereotypical norms. They had to learn basic life skills every single day. They wouldn't take. So they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're still learning how to button their clothes. What do you do with people like that? Mm-hmm. So you still have to do something with them. And one of the things that the company that she worked for did, they had small assembly lines where companies like Darden would outsource to them for pennies on the piece kind of thing, to wrap silverware in a napkin. Little things like that gave them something to do that was manual, that also gave them, a small pittance, if they ever got anything at all. I don't recall the entire finances there and how fair and equitable it was, but that was what was done. So we already have segments of the population that are very low functioning, that are doing these tiny manual operations where people would kill for that job if it paid anything. But it doesn't pay anything because it's either going to that population or it's going to a prison population, where they don't have to pay anything. It's all very, very low price, bottom barrel, cheaper than having somebody pick up a call in India kind of thing. So as we move on, there will still be opportunities, but finding the opportunities, though I would say that it's harder, or it's going to get harder, but that's not the case either, because we have hundreds of online job boards now to find proper employment and things like that. It's easy to find a job. It's not easy to get hired. I don't know how many people have looked at the job market lately, but there are jobs. There's a lot of jobs, aren't there? Whether or not they call you, whether or not you have the magic sauce that somehow gets you through the door, that's another matter entirely.
And that's, that the main problem there is just where we are getting to a point, and this does tie into automation, where we have more people than we have more people of in the working demographic than we do jobs. And that's my concern. That's my concern is that what happens when we continue that trend? What happens when we scale back on how many jobs are available versus how many people need to work? When we have an economy that currently the average age of somebody working a minimum wage job like at McDonald's or Walmart is 33, not 18, just looking for some summer money. When that person is the one who brings in most of their family's income, who needs that income to survive, where is automation going to lead us then when we're talking in the context of like the lower skilled jobs?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's companies, the big companies, they are trying to pinch every penny they can, especially when you deal with a Walmart or you deal with an Amazon. They run very low margin on the products. It's a super low price, but for that low price, they also have to try and shave as much labor cost and overhead as they possibly can to get it to you. So, though they have the resources to be able to automate and pay it forward, it just as in our own lives, it is expensive to be poor.
Yeah.
So, even with companies, it works the same way. A huge company that has big, deep pockets, they can be forward-thinking. They can invest in the future that will then save them money in the long run because they have those resources and the foresight to be able to do that. If you're a mom-and-pop shop, you are never going to get to that point. You're never going to get to the point where having something more automated than a cash register is going to make any sense. So I think the future of that automation thing, there will always be automatons running about. But I don't think that we're actually going to get to a Cafe 80s scenario where you have a TV of Ronald Reagan's face trying to sell you a tab. I don't think we're going to have that kind of thing. There's still going to be a soda jerk behind the counter that's still going to take your order and make your milkshake. There might be one guy doing it, but there's still going to be that guy. So if we can build up a larger base of small businesses that are at least self-sustaining. That's where the entry-level jobs and that's where the income earners are. That's where the biggest liquidity of the cash surplus goes, is to those small businesses. When you get it's been in hundreds of books by this point of how the big box stores are destroying the economy and destroying the mom and pop shops and destroying culture, blah 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 blah. It's already been said to death. So you can find it out there. It's easy to find. But really, I think when we're looking forward, there's a couple options. There's the basic universal income that we've spoke of several times on this show about whether that's a good idea, whether it's a bad idea. Certain nations are experimenting with it, and that's just the living wage. Frankly, here in this country, even the minimum wage wouldn't be enough. It's not a subsistence level stipend, basically. So we do still need to encourage small business, and that will keep us afloat, basically on the backs of the middle class. But we do have to allow a lower class, a poverty class, the ability to get into a middle class.
I agree.
But we also have to have a middle class for them to go to.
That's the important part.
And this is where, then you get the socialized thing and say, we don't want pure socialism. We see how that works. We've got plenty of dystopian novels to reference for that. We don't need to go there, like how most of the conservatives think that's all we want to do is just give away everything. That's not it. We just want the ability to get to the point where maybe then we can look back and say, yeah, I want a tax cut. I want a tax cut too. Now it's hard. It's really hard to get through to a mindset of somebody that's in that privileged position to convince them to vote against their own best interest. It's really hard. Same thing with I'm obviously on a soapbox here, but I'll keep going anyway for the sake of it. Same thing with Congress and our Congress critters, the senators and congressmen. They vote for their own raises. They vote for their own health care. They vote, how many days they're actually going to work and how many vacation days they're going to get. We don't get any say in that, but we elect them. There's something inherently wrong there. And I don't think that even they know that that's wrong. But it's in their best interest to keep it up. So why would they vote against it? I don't even know how to incentivize them to do it. It has to be an altruistic thing. Because they're not going to pass a bill or a law or any motion whatsoever, even to bring it to vote, to make any changes that will hurt their bottom line. They're all millionaires. We are governed by the aristocracy.
Oligarchy.
Yeah, I mean, these are protections that we should have put in a long time ago. But it's grown top-heavy. It's very top-heavy. And they're in a rarefied atmosphere where they don't understand poverty.
And now, because it has gone on for so long, I don't think you can incentivize that kind of thing across the board. I think it's going to take the removal of that power and either placing it in some other agency that deals with that as like a third party, as far as like their raises and vacation days and everything goes. There's just going to have to be some kind of restructuring. I don't think you can incentivize that for them to vote differently on.
Yeah, the thing is, then they'd have to vote on the restructuring too. I mean, sadly, it comes down to you have to burn it down and rebuild it. The mold is throughout all the walls. If you take the construction metaphor, it's cheaper to burn down the house, bulldoze it down, and build it anew. But that's not something that we can do, and that's probably what a lot of the Trump supporters would like, and that's not a good idea. In fact, we were in good ideas, weren't we? We were still in good ideas with all this.
Yes, we were.
So, You know what? Okay, that's going to wrap the good ideas. So, guys, stay tuned for the next one. Coming up next.